Hey guys, welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are taking a look at Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22, an actual 2D based fighting game based off the actual popular cartoon series that was actually released in Japan back in 1996, but it was actually released further in 2003 later on in the PlayStation's life cycle in other regions. So the game is pretty much based off the premise of the cartoon platform, allowing you to actually be able to gain access to a lot of the very popular characters from the cartoon series to be able to fight against each other. And the game actually uses the concept of 2D kind of sprite based characters, but actually fighting on a 3D kind of scene or plane. Although like this type of game, when you consider it towards being very similar to other likes of fighting games, it isn't overly original because there was a lot of other similar style of fighting games back in the day. But again, with this being based on a popular platform, it was pretty much based to appeal to the likes of that audience that were with fans of the actual cartoon series. Because if you don't know Dragon Ball Z, then where have you been actually hiding? Because it was huge back in the 90s and early 2000s. The concept or the cartoon itself has been actually ongoing for a very, very long time. Now the game itself did get mixed reviews across the board, and a lot of magazines claimed it to be kind of like unoriginal, and they criticised it heavily due to the actual slow gameplay and the controls being quite lacking. I will admit, even from my own experience of playing this game, it is like that as well. It's not to say that it's a bad game, but compared to other fighting games, it wouldn't be as fast or as fluid as a lot of other fighting games out there, which kind of like is in somewhat a disappointment considering that it's based off like a really well known like kind of like fighting kind of franchise. So it gives you access to like 27 playable characters, all popular characters from within the timeline of the actual cartoon. And you have the ability, which at the time for an early game on the PlayStation, you had the ability obviously to fight within 3D environments, but you had the ability to fight both on the ground and in the air, which was definitely something that was quite unique at the time. So what it lacked in some areas, it tried different ideas in other ways. The game itself now sold between 260,000 to 320,000 copies during its actual lifetime in Japan alone, and that's not including pretty much whatever was sold in other regions. My first overall experience now with this game was actually way back in around 2001, 2002, or maybe a bit later. Actually, you know what, I think it was around 2003 from what I remember. I remember this game had actually been out for a few months, and I managed to actually pick this up because one of my younger brothers, Damien, he was an absolute Dragon Ball Z fan, mad into the franchise when we were kids growing up. He was obsessed with it. He'd watch it all the time. I remember when I used to look at it, when I seen him watching it, I couldn't get into it at all. I was like, what is this that I'm watching? But he was obsessed with it. So what actually happened was I actually managed to get a copy of this game that was actually going fairly cheap in one of the local game stores, and I got it for like, I think only like £5, £5 at the time. So I bought it for him as a present because I knew how much of a big fan he was of the actual franchise itself. Now he actually played the game himself, like he actually did play it for quite a bit. He enjoyed it, even though he did admit that he wouldn't have been as big of a fan of it compared to say other fighting games, even though he is a big fan of the Dragon Ball Z franchise. But he did admit, compared to some other fighting games on the PlayStation 1, he wasn't as big a fan of it because he admitted that it was quite slow and sluggish, because he was more used to playing the likes of Mortal Kombat and especially the likes of Tekken, and primarily Tekken 3, because he used to be really, really good at Tekken 3. We used to actually play a lot of games in it. We play like groups with our mates and stuff with Tekken, and he used to be one of the better players at it. Very, very hard to beat. But this game was very, very different from that, and I remember his experience, even though he did play it and he did enjoy it, but even he admitted that it was very sluggish compared to a lot of other games. But I know there was a load of other games that were released obviously in different regions, and I think there was one or two other games actually released on the PlayStation itself in general. both like in different formats. There was another style of fighting game actually, it was a Dragon Ball GT. I have done a previous video on it, I'll drop a link down in the description. And that was actually more of a 3D based fighter, so they'd actually kind of scale up the graphics, but again that was released a few years later. But I do remember there was a lot of games on the likes of the PlayStation 2, and my brother Damien had actually bought them all, and he was an absolute beast at those games. It was very, very hard to actually beat him at them. He just really was able to master them. He just played the heck out of those games. But I think for him, any excuse to play anything related to Dragon Ball Z at the time, I think that was more of his thing. He just was into that, and it kind of took him away from, because he was a big fan of RPG games, and Dragon Ball kind of had that, always kind of like that RPG kind of vibe to it anyway within the franchise, so it kind of did appeal to him. Although the campaign, there wasn't really so much of a story based in the actual game. It's pretty much just pick the fighters at random and you go through like a somewhat campaign, but just literally just to get to the end, but there's no real storytelling in the game, which I think was kind of a letdown for fans of the series, because they would have wanted to have some sort of kind of like side plot or story that's different from the likes of the cartoons. I think they would have enjoyed that a lot more. The game also did get a release on the Sega Saturn as well, which was kind of very similar in style and graphics. I think all in all, not a bad game. Like it's not the greatest fighting title on the PlayStation, but it's a decent enough game to play, even if you can put up with the sluggish controls and so forth. And if you are a fan of Dragon Ball Z in general, this may be worth actually checking out, especially if you can pick it up cheap, or if you can happen to get a copy of it somewhere. It may be worth looking into. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this game. Did you play it yourself back in the day? And if so, are you actually even a fan of the Dragon Ball Z franchise as well, like my brother was? And did you enjoy playing these type of games, either on the PlayStation or even any other type of consoles? Be sure to share it down in the comments below. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be updated whenever I release future videos, and also share the video, as I am going to be re-exploring a lot more of these quirky style fighting games on the PlayStation 1 and sharing my thoughts and experiences with everyone. So as always, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and keep those gaming memories alive.